Hello, this is Aaron Mean of SG Gaming Info, and welcome to a new Let's Talk video. In today's video, I'll be talking about Stargate Worlds, the MMO that never was. Back in 2008, I had a chance to play Stargate Worlds, an MMORPG based on the Stargate franchise. While the game was never released, here are my thoughts on the game and what it had. Stargate Worlds was announced in 2006 by developer Cheyenne Mountain Entertainment, and the game was to be set between Season 8 and Season 9 of Stargate SG-1, before the beginning of the Ori story arc. The game was set to have 6 playable races: Tauri, New Mind Goa'uld, Asgard, Jaffa, Free Jaffa, and Opcore. While many of the races were classes unto themselves, the Tauri and Opcore had 4 classes: Archaeologist, Scientist, Soldier, and Commando. The 6 playable races were also split into 2 factions: Stargate Union, which contained Tauri, Free Jaffa, and Asgard, and Praxis, which contained Opcore, Jaffa, and New Mind Goa'uld. While many of the races didn't have classes per se, they could use a talent system to specialize. For example, a New Mind Goa'uld could specialize as an Ashrak, a roguelike melee class. Stargate Worlds was also set to delve deeper into the universe the TV series had created. For example, the Opcore was made up of rogue NID agents and those who used their knowledge of the Stargate program for nefarious purposes. Stargate Worlds also helped to expand the universe by creating new worlds and expanding on already existing ones. While only a limited number of planets were available, the likes of Lucia, a new world, dived into the origins of the Lucian Alliance, a group that first appeared in Season 9 of Stargate SG-1, and Tolana, an existing world, explored what happened to the world and its inhabitants after the Goa'uld attacked. From what I remember, Tolana was partly turned into a Goa'uld resort planet, and Nareem, a character from SG-1, was seemingly looking to start a rebellion. The reason why I use the word seemingly is that, well, the alpha and beta didn't contain a lot of story, although following the collapse of the game, parts of the story were leaked. According to the leak, the story was to involve the resurrection of Ra, the villain from the original Stargate movie, and his attempt to reconquer the galaxy with the remaining Goa'uld and loyal Jaffa. To make sure his plan succeeded, Ra also had an army made up of a new, crystal-like race called the Stragus. Later in the story, it was to be revealed that the Stragus were in fact the Furlings who were damaged and enslaved by Ra. In terms of faction-specific stories, the New Mind Goa'uld was a new Goa'uld group birthed by Anat, who withheld the complete racial memory of the Goa'uld from this new group. Ball was set to be involved with the Praxis as one of its leaders, but was driven out after the player character learned of his attempt to assassinate Anat. The story was also set to dive deeper into the dissolution of the alliance of 4 races. An early draft of the story was labelled canon by MGM, the Stargate rights holders, but it is unsure if the finalised story was labelled canon by MGM. As a Stargate fan, I am disappointed the story never materialised, as it sounded like something lore fans would enjoy. While the story was far from fully implemented, the beta did contain several quests, and in my mind, the Opcore starting zone of the castle offered the best set of quests. The quest chain in the castle was a simple prison break that starts with your character being forcefully awoken from stasis sleep following an attack by the Opcore. Upon waking up, you are taught the basics of the game, which include the cover system and hacking minigame. After you learn the basics, you had to fight numerous NID guards in single-player instanced corridors. When you reached the final instanced corridor, you open the security doors and the game opens up and has you interacting with other players. I remember being amazed by the transition the first time I tested Stargate Worlds, because it felt like an actual prison break, with the sounds of alarms and guards screaming as escapees shot their way to the exit. Once you reached the exit of the prison, you were greeted with a snow-covered mountainous landscape. Now, outside the prison, you had to find the DHD control crystal to finish your escape. And if I remember correctly, to get the crystal you had the option of killing a named mob or killing trash mobs until it dropped. Once you got the crystal, you were free to escape the prison and go to the Praxis capital of Harset. Now, you might think what I described was boring, but the atmosphere made the whole experience incredibly immersive. So now let's talk about Stargate Worlds gameplay. From what was talked about and playable during the alpha and beta, Stargate Worlds was setting up to have some truly interesting gameplay, especially when it came to combat. Stargate Worlds was set to be a tab target hotkey based MMORPG that offered a truly interesting cover system. The cover system was interesting as nearly any object you encountered could offer some degree of cover. The way the game determined the effectiveness of a piece of cover was via a circular radar-like element on your HUD. This radar showed how strong the cover was and how much of your body was protected. What added to the interesting nature of Stargate Worlds' cover system is the fact that it was built from the ground up on the Unreal 3 engine. While the cover system and by extension ranged combat was the main component of combat, Stargate Worlds was to give the archaeologist an interesting cover system. The archaeologist was set to use a conversation minigame to resolve combat, but the archaeologist never made it into the alpha or beta, and so there is no definitive way of knowing how the conversation minigame would have worked. Speaking of minigames, Stargate Worlds was set to include at least 6 minigames, including the DHD. While 6 minigames were planned, only 2 made it into the beta. The first was a hacking minigame called Livewire, where players had to clip the correct wires in order to hack into a device. And the second was the DHD, which while not necessarily a minigame, it offered players the option of either manually or auto-dialing new locations. The amount of times I shouted Chevron encoded while manually dialing was way too high. In terms of playable content in the Stargate Worlds alpha and beta, only 6 out of the 8 classes were playable, and out of those 6, 1 had a major game-breaking bug, and the remaining 5 weren't fully complete. In terms of planets, there were a total of 10 accessible worlds, which were Beta Site, the Castle, Takara, Harset, Ipit Crater, Lucia, Menfa, Omega Site, Stargate Command, and Tulana. The 10 planets were in varying degrees of completion, with the capital planets of Omega Site and Harset appearing to be almost fully finished. The game also only really had human weapons and armor fully implemented, alongside some Jaffa weaponry. Finally, the game's crafting system never truly made it into the beta. While the system was added into the game before the beta ended, it wasn't fully functional. As you might imagine, the alpha and beta did contain a number of bugs and issues. These included floating objects, and a duplication bug which I hilariously saw take down a developer investigating it. When it came to the game's graphics and audio, the alpha and beta never seemed to have any final version assets, as characters and buildings were rather rough. In particular, characters had a rather low polygon count and rough textures. Now, my basis for saying the characters seemed rough is due to the fact that there was a Stargate Worlds video placed on the MGM licensing website that showed far more detailed and higher resolution character models. In terms of audio, Stargate Worlds was fantastic, even though the game was far from feature complete. Nicola Martina, who served as sound designer and later senior sound designer, created amazing ambient sound effects, amazing original score, and some truly Stargate weapon sound effects. It is cruel that his work won't be heard by more people. There is so much I could say about my time with Stargate Worlds, but I will finish this opinion piece by saying Stargate Worlds was a game that showed a lot of potential, and it is really unfortunate that the game has been lost to the annals of time, as Stargate and MMORPG fans have seemingly forgotten the game. Thank you for watching. Please like, favorite and subscribe. For more gaming information, please visit sggaminginfo.com, and don't forget to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/sggaminginfo, and of course, follow us on Twitter at sggaminginfo.